Colossus is the most advanced lineup optimizer in daily fantasy sports. Lock and exclude players. Adjust player exposure to reduce risk of injury or poor performance. Customize individual projections or upload your own projections. Generate hundreds of optimal lineups in seconds. Name and save the best lineups. Create winning lineups for the top sites like DraftKings and FanDuel for free at dailyfantasycafe.com.
Hello and welcome to the DraftKings Daily Trot. I'm Big Italy 42. He's Scott Maywood, got Sports 25 to life, and I feel like it's Groundhog Day from yesterday because once again, lots of aces at the top and a whole lot of garbage at the bottom. So we know who we want to pick on, we know who we want to target. So main decision, I guess there's three guys up top, depending on who you ask, that are in play as your top overall play. You got Chris Sale, Madison Bumgarner, Zach Greinke. Obviously, Bumgarner and Greinke facing off against each other in LA. So 6-run total. Greinke a very, very small favorite. Chris Sale, not as big of a favorite as you'd like. Obviously, on the road at Minnesota, but we know that over the past 30 days, he and Bumgarner especially have been posting absolutely absurd numbers. Looks like Chris Sale over the past 30 days with a strikeout rate of 38.5%. Madison Bumgarner at 37.9%. Bumgarner's not allowed a single home run over that span either. Both guys with swing strike rates over 15. And then you got Zach Greinke, who kind of seems like the forgotten man. But, I mean, all he's doing is just continuing to just dominate everyone. Maybe not putting up the strikeout upside that the other two guys have, but probably, the safest of the cash game options, you would think.
Yeah, I think so too. I like a decent amount of these guys at the top today. I feel pretty good about basically all of the top five guys, honestly. Bumgarner, I feel pretty good about against a Dodgers team that, especially with Hernandez on the DL now, is struggling more and more against lefties. I mean, they're going to have to play Crawford and Ethier probably against lefties now, which, I think that's going to be my favorite play today, even though it's him and Greinke squaring off is the toughest part of that. But on DraftKings, the win doesn't matter as much. I mean, I'd still like to get it. But as a pick'em game, I mean, you're either picking the guy that pitches better or you're not. Like, he's either pitching a good enough game to win this game or he's not pitching well enough to pay off this 12-4 price tag anyway. Sure. So it's a little bit more of a GPP play for me, both Greinke and Bumgarner. I prefer Bumgarner slightly just because of the matchup. San Francisco's been pretty good against righties, although Greinke's not anywhere near your standard righty. 6-run over-under. I mean, I like both of these guys a ton.
Yeah.
It's really hard when it's basically a pick-em game. But, I mean, Greinke's a small favorite. I prefer Bumgarner, though, just because of the Dodgers lefty mashers being on the DL. Outside of that, Garrett Cole is probably my favorite price play against Milwaukee. I'm not a huge Garrett Cole fan, but, I mean, this Milwaukee team's really struggled against righties. Cole's got some nice strikeout upside. They've been striking out a lot. They're 29th in the majors in strikeouts over the last 3 weeks, it looks like, against righties. I mean, Cole's been really, really good over the last 2 games. 1 earned run in over 14 innings, 12 strikeouts in that span, only 8 hits allowed. And he's gone at least 6 2/3 in 4 of the last 5 starts. There's a lot to like there. I think that's probably my favorite cash game play. He's minus 150 favorite. Not the biggest favorite on the board, but you're paying almost 4,000 more for Chris Sale against Minnesota, who does have some guys that hit lefties well. So I'm going to play Garrett Cole a ton in cash games tonight, and I think Bumgarner is probably my favorite GPP play.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I mean, like you mentioned with that Dodgers offense, they're bottom 5 over the last 30 days in runs scored. They did get no hit twice already. Obviously, then it's not going to happen again. Well, I guess it's not obvious, but they've been terrible, like you mentioned. So I'm with you there. I feel like Sale's a pretty tough fit in your cash games at almost 14,000. But I mean, we know the kind of massive upside that he has.
I mean, he's the safest play for sure. Like, there's no doubt about that. You're just paying 2,000 more than the other 2 guys who were in a pick'em game, basically. So I can see justifying that. But I mean, Johnny Cueto against Detroit is not a bad option at all today at 10-1. I mean, Detroit's offense has been better since Cabrera got back, but they've been crushing lefties, not quite as good against righties. Cueto's been pretty solid. With Kansas City's offense behind him, you got to feel pretty decent about that going against Drew Smyly today. I prefer Cole as a cash game play just because Detroit's offense is a ton more upside than Milwaukee's.
Yeah.
But Cueto's not a bad option really in any format at this price. I mean, he's definitely the best price play out of all these guys, I think. But Cole's probably that safe guy I'll be sticking with in cash games.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And then a couple other guys that look like GPP options. I wish I could talk about Verlander because he's been incredible over the past month especially. But, I mean, Kansas City just does not strike out. They were also the last team to hit him hard. So it's not to say he's not a GPP option, but at almost 10K, those guys you just mentioned, barely more expensive than him. I really can't justify playing him outside of just being a contrarian play.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I said Smiley for Detroit. I was getting my
ex-Detroit.
my ex-Detroit team on there. But speaking of Smiley, one of the cheaper guys I like today, Chris Tillman for Baltimore, is facing Smiley. And, I mean, Baltimore's offense has been pretty solid. Smiley hasn't been great. He's allowing almost a 200 ISO on the season. I mean, there's a ton of upside for that Baltimore offense that I'm sure we're going to get to. Tillman's only a minus 127 favorite, which seems honestly kind of low to me. I don't see Tampa Bay scoring a ton of runs against him. I mean, they've still been awful against righties. They've been much better lately. But for 5,300, that's my favorite value play out of everyone today, I think. The only other guy that I would put in that conversation is John Neese, and he's quite a bit more expensive at 6,500. But big favorite against Philly. We saw them obviously really struggling against Bartolo Colon yesterday. They're a little bit better against lefties so that's a little bit concerning. But 6,200 for the biggest favorite on the board, or 6,500 for the biggest favorite on the board, is pretty hard to argue with also.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I definitely agree on that Tillman call. I mean, he's by far the most talented and the most consistent of any of those cheap pitchers. I expect most of, if not all, the other guys down there just get shelled tonight. So, I'm with you there. Other guys in the middle that are interesting plays, but guys you don't love. You've got Joe Ross is a guy who's been pitching well over his past few starts. He's been great since he came up. It's a tough matchup against St. Louis. They're obviously much better against righties than lefties, but at $9,200, I think he's a good GPP play because people won't want to be paying that price tag for him. And then another guy who does have big-time upside, but also very inconsistent, especially when you look at his game logs. 229.3 point outings, and then a 0.8 and a negative 14 in his last four. Matt Shoemaker against Oakland. Obviously, Oakland, a team that's much worse against lefties than righties, but as a whole, they've just not been a very good offense. And Shoemaker, like I mentioned, he's got 26 or more fantasy points in 4 of 6. Unfortunately, those other two have been negative, but $6,700, I don't think a bad option for him in that big ballpark. All right. Anybody else that you like at pitcher? Because there's really nobody else that I'm looking at, even as
no, that's what I'm trying to find too. I listed all the guys that I noted before the show. I think that's pretty much what I'm sticking with. I mean, we got a nice range of guys. We talked about all the top guys. I mean, we went all the way down to the 5,000 range. I mentioned I like Neese at 6,500. I mean, those are the guys I'm sticking to. I don't really have a reason to go away from those guys with the diverse salaries of the guys we mentioned already.
Yep, I agree with you there. All right, looking over here at catcher, plenty of options once again. You get a guy like Brian McCann against Rick Porcello, who's terrible against lefties. Yankees in a good spot, and McCann's been hitting the ball pretty well. A guy who's finally looking like he did earlier in the season, Stephen Vogt, $3,500. Homer to back-to-back games now. Obviously at home, but looks like there's a little bit of wind blowing out. And we know Shoemaker, his biggest weakness is the long ball. So look at those guys. And then once again, assuming that you're not playing Chris Tillman, John Jaso, once again, nice cash game play at $2,500, even cheaper than he was last time he faced a righty. So you don't love the play because, like I said, Tillman has been better. But, I mean, John Jaso at $2,500 just makes a lot of sense if you're paying up at pitcher.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, those are probably the guys I'm sticking to for the most part at catcher. I like Kyle Schwarber, decent amount for GPPs. He's pretty expensive, though, at $4,400. Obviously, Wellington Castillo at $4,100, and Coors is a solid play against Kyle Kendrick. I think McCann's probably my favorite play out of those three, although I like the park factors for Castillo, obviously. I just think he's going to be really heavily owned and doesn't really scream must play to me at that price, but Jaso is far and away my favorite cheap option today.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'll throw out Sal Perez, too, for you BVP lovers out there. 18 for 38 off Verlander, so if there is one that has a decent sample size, that's the one that you got tonight. First base options, of course, Paul Goldschmidt. against Kyle Kendrick. I hope we don't need to explain this one to you. Kyle Kendrick, one of the worst pitchers in baseball. Paul Goldschmidt, one of the best hitters in baseball. Do the math there. If you can get him in, and he's going to be tough to fit with any of these big pitchers, but definitely your GPPs, Goldschmidt, one of the top options, if not number one overall in the whole slate today.
Yep.
I like Joey Votto against Dan Herron. I like all the Reds against Dan Herron because Dan Herron over the last 30 days, 2.81 home runs per 9. I know everyone knows I already hate Dan Herron anyway as a pitcher, but he's been exceptionally bad over the past month. So for me, Votto's probably the guy I'll be paying up in that 5K range for if I can't reach for Goldschmidt.
Yeah, that's probably about where I'm at too. I like Rizzo a decent amount also in that same price range against DeScalfani. After that, I'd probably look to go a little bit cheaper. Prince Fielder against Cashner today is a pretty interesting play for 3,600. Probably more of a cash game play as his power just hasn't been as prominent as it has been in past years. He's only got a 140 ISO against righties on the season, which isn't terrible, especially when he's hitting the way he's hitting, but I mean, doesn't have quite the power upside that you're looking for in GPPs at first base with some of these other options today. But I mean, Cashner's been terrible against lefties, allowing a 387 WOBA, 233 ISO. I like the Rangers as a stack overall today, at least the lefty half of them. Cashner's been decently tough on righties, but they've got a lot of lefties in the lineup you can use today. And then probably the other GPP play, I like Pedro Alvarez against Jimmy Nelson today. Yep. Nelson's allowing a 376 WOBA, 200 ISO to lefties. Hopefully Alvarez is in the 5-hole today, but he's been hitting in the 6-hole a little bit too much for my liking. I think he's a fine one-off GPP play in either of those spots because you're probably going to get 4 at-bats either way, unless they bring in a lefty specifically to face him. So I don't mind him at 3,600 either.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And then another guy at 3,600, Ryan Zimmerman. Been hitting for a lot of power over the past few weeks against the young pitcher tonight. And then Evan Gattis, if you're just chasing power, he's got a ton of power against lefties. Hasn't been as great this season, but been hitting much better over the past couple weeks here. And Rorinus Elias, not a guy that I have any sort of faith in at all tonight.
Yeah, and throwing in the last cheap guy that seems to be stuck at this price point, Justin Smoke's 2,700 again in Toronto. That's a red-hot offense. So if you're looking for someone really cheap at first base, I don't think I would go below him.
Yep, I'm with you there. Looking at second base options, I think my favorite tonight is going to be Neil Walker at $3,900 against Nelson. He hits much better from the left side of the plate. Obviously, you mentioned Nelson struggles against lefties already, so I like that a lot. Nice discount for him when you consider everything. Jason Kipnis is a guy hitting in Toronto. He's more of a GPP play, of course, because he's very expensive, but $5,000 against Estrada, who, as we know, all Estrada really does is get strikeouts and give up home runs. That's what he's always done throughout his career. So I like Kipnis as a tournament play. No way I'd be playing him in a cash game, though, at 5K.
Yeah, right. I much prefer Altuve today against the lefty again. I like a lot of this Houston batting order again today against lefties. He's down to 4,500. I want to say he was 5,000 yesterday, if I recall correctly.
He was close. I don't know if he was exactly 5, but yeah,
like
right
48 or 49. Yeah. I mean, I love him against lefties most of the time. Doesn't have quite the power that Dozier does, but he's probably a better cash game play. I like him quite a bit as a cash game play today. Outside of that, I don't mind Dozier as a GPP play against Sale, although I don't love it. But another BVP guy, he's got 33 at-bats against Sale, and he's hitting 300 against him with 4 home runs. So there's some upside there as a GPP play. No chance I would pay $4,000 for him against one of the best pitchers in the major leagues in a cash game. But for a couple bullets, I don't mind him there. Martin Prado against a lefty in Banuelos is a fine play, I guess, but he's a little overpriced at $3,500. I'd prefer playing someone like Corey Spangenberg again against Gallardo in Texas for $2,300. I think that's a much better play. He's going to be in the 2-hole again tonight, would be my guess.
Yep. Yeah, I like that. And then I'll throw one more guy. Colton Wong, $3,700. Joe Ross, just like his brother, struggles with left-handed batters. So it's not significant. It's 343 WOBA. Obviously a fairly small sample size, but definitely a guy that you can pick on with a couple lefties here and there.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, third base options. Josh Donaldson. I mean,
all the way down to 5,500.
Yeah, I mean a fat discount on. I mean, probably if you figure this season, I don't know. I'm not saying he's the best hitter overall, but this season he's been the best hitter in all of baseball. Yep. And I mean, he's never slowing down. Cody Anderson, a guy who just does not miss any bats. This is a guy who has a really terrible strikeout rate, bad swing strike rate. So you're going to make contact. Josh Donaldson only makes great contact. So Cody Anderson and his 11.4% strikeout rate, not in a very good spot tonight against these Toronto bats. So Josh Donaldson, much easier to afford than he was last couple days. So got to like him. And then you can look at Nolan Arenado against Ruby De La Rosa, of course, at Coors Field. But De La Rosa much better against righties. Terrible against lefties, though. We'll get to them in a minute, I'm sure, though.
Yeah, I'll reluctantly mention Jake Lamb again, although yesterday is the exact reason why I refuse to play him most of the time. Went 0 for 4 in Coors against a weak righty.
It's just bad.
Yeah, I don't want to pay
$3,800
for him, right? I don't want to pay $3,800 for a guy that I don't think is good hitting sixth. I know he's in Coors. I mean, if he was $3,100, I'm all for it. But I mean, the upside with him is not good enough for me to pay $3,800 when I can get like Manny Machado today for $4,300 against Smiley. I think is a really solid play. I really hope they play Machado like 4 or 5 more games or whatever he needs at shortstop to get that eligibility, because he'd probably be in my lineup every day if that was the case. Outside of that, if you're looking for a little bit cheaper guys, Anthony Rendon is only $3,400 against a lefty again today. He's up to 335 WOBA against lefties again. He's had almost zero power all season, so there's not a ton of upside there. But as a second base, third base option, I think he's a fine cash game play. He's just been so good in his career against lefties, and the WOBA's there. I think the ISO probably comes around a little bit at some point. So I'm going to keep playing him for as long as he remains cheap. Another guy that's interesting to me in a tough matchup today is Justin Turner against Bumgarner. Probably going to hit in the 3-hole as he usually does against lefties. He's only 3,000 because of that matchup. I think he's a decent GPP play also if you're not playing Bumgarner in that lineup.
Yeah, I like that call. And then another guy, Danny Valencia, continues to hit everybody hard. $3,400, had another big game last night. I like him. And then another guy you can consider if you're looking for another BVP guy with a huge sample size, Evan Longoria just absolutely crushes Chris Tillman. 3,600. Hit another homer last night. And by another, I mean he's had 2 in the past week, so nothing to get too excited about. But he's still, in my mind, hasn't really turned that corner. But at $3,600, he's still a much better hitter than that price indicates.
Yeah, definitely. I'm waiting for you to mention your boy who's in my tentative lineup right now.
Oh, third base?
Yeah.
Who am I missing here? Who did I forget?
Chisenhall.
Oh, of course.
He's facing Estrada in Rogers Center
I
today.
usually leave Chisenhall for other people just because everyone thinks I only always talk about Chisenhall because I like him.
Him today. He's in my tentative lineup right now. He's 3,400, so he's a little pricey, but as a GPP play in Toronto today against Estrada, I feel pretty good about it. Estrada's been, pretty decent for a righty who pitches in Toronto all the time against lefties, but he has a lot of 157 ISO to lefties on the season, so there's quite a bit of power potential there. Another guy that's in that same price range that I like a decent amount is Travis Shaw for Boston against Pineda. He's 2,900. Pineda's allowing a 315 WOBA and a 169 ISO to lefties. Shaw's obviously been really solid for the Red Sox over the last couple weeks here.
Yeah, and Pineda's just been getting absolutely crushed in seemingly every game now. So definitely these cheap Boston bats are going to have a ton of value tonight. Shortstop options, of course, at the top. If you want to look at Jose Reyes, I don't blame you at $4,800. He's finally producing after, I don't know if you saw those comments where he's pretty much said he's pissed off that he's not playing for a contender now, but he's hitting like he's playing for a contender, so you got to like him. Carlos Correa, of course, against the lefty. Didn't disappoint if you paid up for him last night, hitting another homer in his return to the lineup. So, he's an elite play tonight. Tulowitzki against Cody Anderson. Pretty top-heavy at shortstop. I'll give the mention that I always do when he faces a lefty. Marwin Gonzalez should be batting second. Another one of those guys that's just a good cash game play because he's cheap last night. He went 1 for 3 with a walk, scored a couple runs, 9 points. That's perfectly acceptable for your cash game at his price.
Yeah, I agree with you. Shortstop's really top-heavy tonight. I'm probably going to pay for Correa absolutely as much as I possibly can. If I'm looking for a cheap guy, Cesar Hernandez is 2,800 against Nice. I don't love playing guys against Nice, really, but Hernandez has been good enough, and if he's hitting first, which he has been against lefties, 2,800 is probably too cheap, and it's really the only cheap guy that I'm very excited about at shortstop. There's some upside with Ian Desmond, I guess, at 3,500 against a lefty. He's got a 200-plus ISO against lefties, but And the 6-hole, I don't know if I want to pay $3,500 for that when I can just pay $1,000 more and get like Tulo, Reyes, Correa. I'd rather just be done with shortstop and have a ton of upside there and go look at value plays in the outfield or something like that.
Yeah, that's my thought there. There are two guys I like in the mid-range, but they're obviously just GPP plays. Didi Gregorius is just continuing to crush the ball. We mentioned Porcello's bad against lefties. And as Asdrubal Cabrera, another one of those guys that's just continuing to hit pretty well. But I'm with you. I, for the most part, will be sticking up there at the top at shortstop tonight. Outfield options, of course, you got A.J. Pollock against Kyle Kendrick. Hit a homer last night. Had a nice game. $6,000, though, a ridiculous price tag. I would much rather pay, in my mind, $64 for Goldschmidt if I'm playing one of the two. But definitely don't blame me if you want to go that route. All the lefty bats. Finally, Colorado gets a righty. And a righty who is one of the worst in all of baseball against lefties. So if you're playing tonight, you want to get yourself some shares of Cargo, Blackman, whoever you can in that outfield, because these guys are finally in a really good spot at home.
Yeah, and they're basically all the same price they were yesterday when no one really liked them at all. So I think they're all going to be pretty heavily owned today. A couple other guys I like a decent amount outside of Coors. I mean, those 6 Coors outfielders are really hard to argue with today if you can afford them.
Yep.
But I don't mind Chris Coghlan at $3,400 at either second base or outfield today against DeScalfani. Curtis Granderson is kind of interesting against Harang today, assuming he's leading off. He's $4,500, which is a little bit pricey for me, but hard to argue with. If you're looking for more expensive guys, Michael Brantley in Toronto against Estrada is another Indians outfielder that I like. This is where I would like to save some money in the outfield because there are a decent amount of options. Grady Sizemore's flat 2,000 against Tillman in a lefty-friendly Baltimore environment today. He hasn't been great in terms of power, but that's a great park factor for left-handed hitters there. Scott Van Slyke finally hit a home run in his last game against a lefty. I don't mind him tonight against Bumgarner if you're looking for someone really cheap. He's $2,100. Darren Roof has been hitting lefties really well all season. He has a 434 WOBA and a 216 ISO against lefties. Neese isn't nearly a dominant lefty that I'd want to avoid for a guy that, I mean, Roof probably is going to hit second today, I would think. I think they went Cesar Hernandez and then Roof the last time they faced a lefty.
Definitely top 4, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's probably my favorite outfield play today, assuming he's in that top 4. I've seen him hit 6 a decent amount, but most of the time that's against righties. So we'll have to see when the lineup comes out. But I think that's my favorite value play today.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, that's like you mentioned, there's a lot of cheap guys down there. I'm with you on Granderson, and I like all the Mets. Aaron Harang got absolutely smashed by this team last time he faced them, about a week and a half ago. Didn't get a single strikeout. I think he gave up three home runs. So I like that as a fairly cheap stack, actually. I mean, their most expensive hitter, $4,800 Yoenis Cespedes. So you can get that stack in there, maybe pair with a different stack. And I mean, after that hot stretch, they haven't been particularly good over this past week. So I think they'll go a little bit under-owned.
Yeah.
So I like that. Another guy that I like, Jay Bruce against Dan Herron at $4,000. Like I said, I'm playing a lot of the Reds because Dan Herron is just giving up a ton of hard contact, ton of home runs right now. So I'm a big fan there. And then other middle guys, I absolutely love Gregory Polanco at $4,100. Mentioned Jimmy Nelson, we do every time how bad he gets against lefties. And Polanco isn't quite on fire the way he was a few weeks ago, but still having some big-time games. And you got to love him leading off there as one of those lefties against him tonight.
Yeah, a couple other middle guys I've been looking at. I mentioned Carlos Gomez yesterday. He had reached base in 5 straight games, reached base again last night. I mean, he's still pretty cold, but I mean, there's some decent upside there with steals, and he has a decent amount of power. I know that he's not having a great season, especially against lefties, but I mean, if he's going to be hitting 5th probably for Houston today against a lefty, I like basically everybody in the top 6 of that lineup. He's only $3,700 still because he's been so cold, so I'd look at him a little bit. Michael Taylor probably going to lead off for Washington. He's $3,400 against a lefty. Has some decent power for a speed guy. Not a great on base guy, but I like him as a GPP play. And then Logan Morrison against Feldman today for Seattle, I think is an interesting play. I'm hoping he hits 5th like he did last time they faced a righty. Not a guy I love, but for $3,000, I think that's a pretty decent price.
Yeah, I like that. And then a couple of Baltimore bats against the lefty Smiley. Steve Pearce, he should be in lineup since it's a lefty. He smashes lefties, hasn't been great this season, but a couple home runs since he came back from the DL. 2,800 for him, and then 3,800 for Adam Jones, who, as we know, hasn't been great recently, but still mashes left-handed pitching. So I think that's a nice cheap price tag for a guy with a nice track record here. And that's going to wrap things up. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out all of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.